In this video, we are going to learn how to create basic materials in Unreal Engine using texture maps that were created in Substance Painter. I've linked my previous video in the description where I talk about exporting textures from Substance Painter for Unreal Engine. So let's get started. We're going to start from scratch by bringing our model and textures into the file. So I'm going to open my content drawer so I can bring that in, and let's go to my file explorer. So I have my file explorer open. This has my models and my textures. So I am going to bring that all in. So I'm going to start with my model, and I'm going to make sure I am bringing in a static mesh, import static mesh, and I'm going to combine meshes because I think my object is in separate pieces and I want it to be a single mesh inside Unreal, and I'm going to import all. Okay, now I'm going to import my textures. Let me start with the Unreal Engine packed textures. So I'm going to import these and we'll see how to add them. So once you bring your texture maps in, we can start connecting them to your model. I am going to drag my model into my level, and it's really small. So I'm going to just make that a lot bigger. So I'm going to go to the scale section, scale it up maybe 20 so we can see this, maybe 30. And I have this lock turned on so that when I type into one of them, it changes all three X, Y, and Z scales. So I have my object here, and I am going to now assign my textures to that object. To do that, I need to open my material that I imported with my object. Now, if for some reason you don't see a material here, you can create a new one in your content drawer by right-clicking and just clicking on material and then naming it whatever you want. Let's name this arcade material, and let's say, so right now if I look at my object, you can see that if I click on it, it has Lambert 2 assigned on the material. Since I just created a new one, I can change that to, let's assign arcade material to this object. Now we need to use our textures to set up this material. I'm going to double click, and I am going to just all these textures that I have dragged and dropped into my project, I'm going to select these and I'm going to bring them into my material. Now all of these textures are exported using Unreal Engine Packed. So we have base color, we have normal, we have emissive, and we have occlusion, roughness, and metallic. Before connecting these textures, let's take a look at our black and white textures or grayscale textures. Remember that occlusion, roughness, metallic is still not a texture that uses color. So let's double click on this, and if we double click, it opens it up in the content drawer. Even though we see color here, we just want to use these red, green, and blue channels for our textures, so we do not want to use the color. We're going to turn off sRGB, and we're going to save this. And Unreal Engine is now, we're going to go to this texture, and we are going to change this to linear color. So now let's connect this one to start off with. This one, as I mentioned in my earlier video, is something that goes into the ambient occlusion. So R goes into ambient occlusion, G goes into roughness, and B goes into the metallic section. So you have this map that we just connected, and then now let's connect our emissive. So emissive is a color map, so that's just RGB that goes into the emission. So emissive color, RGB. And then we have our base color, which I'm going to connect to RGB. And then we have our normal map, which I am just going to use RGB, connect that. And by default, Unreal Engine recognizes this as a normal map, as you can see here. And now let's apply this, and let's make sure to save, and let's look at what we get. So we get all our textures applied to this object with the correct settings. One small note for the emissive texture, you can also use this for other textures if you want to control the intensity of the textures, but you notice that my emissive color is here. That goes into the emissive color section, but there's no way to control the intensity of the emissive. So if you look at my file here, let me just make sure I apply these changes. And let's look at my object here. So we have a level of emissive, but it would be nice to control that level of emissive. So to my emissive color, I'm just going to break this link, right click to break this link. And now I have this texture map here. I'm going to use another node. And what I'm going to use is a scalar parameter. So I'm going to type in tab, just my tab key on the keyboard. That's going to bring up all my nodes that are available within Unreal Engine. I'm going to type in scalar and scalar parameter. This just lets us input a number. So I'm going to bring this in and type in emissive intensity. Let me make sure I use an underscore for that, and let's type in emissive intensity. And now I want to connect both of these to my emissive color, but the emissive color takes only one input. So we need another node that combines our color with the intensity. And for that, we can use a multiply node. So tab again and type in multiply and bring that in. And this just takes in two values and kind of multiplies them together. So we have our emissive color and we have our emissive intensity. That's going to multiply them together, and we're going to put them into emissive color. So now it's going to take this value, multiply it by the number that's here. So let's put this at a really high number, 100, and let's apply. And you can see that that intensity just increased a lot. If I set this back to like maybe 1 or 2 and apply, that is a lower intensity. Now let's look at our PBR metallic roughness textures, which are more familiar. You have similar maps to what you would have in a software like Maya. I'm going to bring up PBR metallic roughness and drag these maps in. I've removed my Unreal maps from the content drawer just because I think they were named the same, so I just didn't want anything to cause problems. So I'm going to click on OK. And now let's bring these in. I'm going to select all my maps, drag that in there. And we have more maps here, so let's take a look. My normal base color, we can leave them as is. But all our black and white maps, let's see, this is a height map. I don't think I really need this, so I'm going to delete that. And let's look at my other maps. So I have my emissive, these are all color maps. But anything that is black and white, we want to select that map, open it up, and turn off sRGB. Click on save, and do the same for this one as well. Where is that? Okay, it's over here. Roughness, we turn off sRGB and save. Let's close this out. And when you turn off sRGB, you'll see that, let me try connecting this. So this is my metallic map. I'm going to take my R channel and I'm going to put that in metallic. And Unreal Engine is going to get mad at me. So whenever you're not using sRGB, you want to change the sampler type to linear color. Linear color just uses the brightness values, so the black and white values, instead of using the color values. We're going to do the same for my roughness. Let's make sure this is my roughness map, and let's drag that into roughness. The specular default for Unreal is 0.5. That's just something to keep in mind. If you've used Maya, the default specular is 1. So if you notice something where textures aren't looking as you expect, you can play around with the specular value to get the result that you want. So we have our roughness. Let's put in our normal. We can just take the RGB to normal. It's going to recognize that as a normal map. Let's take in my base color. Let's move these up. And for emissive, we're again going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to repeat those steps a little quicker now. So tab, type in scalar, my scalar parameter. This is intensity, and I'm going to type in maybe 5 in here, and then tab, use a multiply node, and connect my RGB to A, and connect my scalar parameter to B. And I'm going to bring that in and put that into my emissive color. And now this should work just as it did earlier because we're using the exact same settings. So we have our emissive. I'm going to turn on my light so we can see all the other textures, and yes, it is functioning as expected.